Welcome back to the Blue Castle podcast. I'm your host, Sarah.
I'm your other host, Molly.
And we are on camera. So if you want to watch us on YouTube or check out some, snippets of our podcast on social media, we'll be there now. So we're joining the wide world of podcasting on video. But if you're listening to us on Apple Podcast or Spotify, it probably won't be much different of an experience for you. It's just a little different for us. So we're settling in. But anyway, Molly, do you have anything to say about us being on camera? Are you so excited?
If you're listening on any of the traditional podcasts, like listening, streaming services, you got your Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever, this won't be any different. But if we sound a little shy today, that's why. We're not used to being on camera.
Molly lives for the camera. She's
Who am I kidding? The camera loves me.
Yeah, so if you didn't know what we looked like, I hope this isn't a jump scare, and I hope we don't look totally different than what you were expecting. I didn't mean jump scare and that we're
good heavens,
hideous.
they're hideous.
But I think you probably can tell we are sisters by looking at us. At least we get that a lot when people see us in person. So anyway, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have... I can't say it's late breaking because it's new news, but it's not brand new news. But it's all about the new version of lightning lanes. And Molly has done the research this time. So I am going to take a back seat and listen and probably ask the questions that you guys might be asking if I don't understand how it's working, like the new system. But it's all about skipping the line.
So the format of it today, the format of it is going to be kind of what the history was and then what it's moving to now. And then we might talk a little bit about like the tone of how people are receiving it, how people have received the different options in the past, because you might hear negative reviews, you might hear positive reviews on different lightning lane skip the line systems, and we're just going to tell you briefly like what changed from one option to the next. They've had a few different rollouts over the years, and the reason people are annoyed about any particular thing of any current system is because they liked something better in the past. So the past kind of informs how people are perceiving the current and the future. Sorry, I'm talking with my hands more because I can see myself.
She's getting very excited, everybody.
Skipping the lines is awesome.
Okay. It really is. And Molly, we were talking about it before the podcast, and she goes, really all this is the various ways you could skip the line in the past. And I'm like, it's so funny because there's so much branding and like complication around these various ways to skip lines. But all it comes down to is people want to make the most of their Disney trip, and they don't want to stand in line for an hour to get on these rides. And they're sometimes willing to pay for it, or at least work for it. But yeah, fun stuff, just new ways to do it.
And when we talk about skipping the line and we talk about it like it's, oh, totally fine, skip the line, we're not talking about like you literally just cut in front of people. These are regulated systems. Don't try to cut people at Disney World. The cast members and the fellow park goers will be upset. But there are ways to do it that are not breaking any rules, hurting any feelings. So that's what we're talking about today. The regulated Disney endorsed ways to skip the line.
It does hurt my feelings when people are going in the standby line. I mean, I'm in the standby line and they're going in the lightning lane. It hurts my feelings, but I understand that they're allowed to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
And more often than not, we are the ones with the standby thing because we don't go that often, so we usually splurge on it. So
also, let the record show that I'm not sure if any of these systems are good. I think that there's a good chance that if we never had any of these skip the line systems, all the lines would definitely move faster and people might just be happier. But that's not the world we live in. So I'm not going to be the person who tries to be the ideal citizen by never using or utilizing these systems. If you can't beat them, join them. There's nothing wrong with it. But anyway, we'll get into how the systems work a little bit, and that might make more sense to people later on, why I'm saying they might not be good at all.
Interesting. Hot take.
Hot
All
take.
right. Kick us off. How are we starting this journey?
Okay, so we are focusing only on Walt Disney World because Disneyland systems have kind of been similar at times, and they've also kind of been very different at times, and they're a whole different beast. And Disney World has changed enough. So let's just focus on Walt Disney World. That's the bread and butter of our podcast. So Magic Kingdom is the most Disney World park of all Disney World. And when they first opened in 1971, they had no way to skip the line. It was just you would get in line, wait in that line, and then get on the ride later. It was a little different because you used to pay per attraction, so that already kind of vetted how many people were getting into the lines. But one of the main complaints at Magic Kingdom for a long time was how long the lines were. And for a long time, the Imagineers had no answer for it. They just said, a lot of people want to get on the ride, like you're gonna have to wait. But 28 years later, after 1971, this was in 1999, an Imagineer whose name I didn't write down, sorry, but he invented and implemented the paper fast pass system in the parks. So that was, over half of the time. Like this was most of the time that Magic Kingdom's been around. There was no system. Then in 1999 came paper fast pass system. The paper fast passes were a free way for a portion of the guests to be able to skip the line every hour for most rides. So the way those worked is when the park opened, you would run or speed walk or whatever to the most popular attractions. You'd scan your ticket in a kiosk, and that kiosk would spit back out a paper fast pass with the earliest available time for you. So these fast passes were free, and as far as I can tell, they were completely unlimited, but they were first come, first serve. So you would make the rounds going to every popular ride you wanted to go to for a fast pass, and you could get all of them in one day. And if you came in a couple hours later, there might be none left. So very interesting to me. And then the number of fast passes they gave out were based on the number of riders who could go in a given hour. And then they took like 25% of the 1 hour occupancy. And that's the number of fast passes they would give.
Interesting.
For every ride, for every hour.
And that's like, I mean, it's a while ago. I don't know when that ended. You'll probably tell us that. But that's like the system that was there for a long time. At least I know of, like, I'm thinking of some of the original vlogs I saw of Disneyland people, and they were like giving tips. Like it was a quick tip, like video. It wasn't even a vlog really. And they were talking about the fast pass system. And they were like, get your walking shoes ready, like speed walk all around, whatever. And it was a mad dash. Whereas today, like everything's on your phone. And the mad dash is just to get in that rope drop physical line for your first ride. That's not a lightning lane situation. So
yeah.
Very different.
It was weird too, because looking at the old videos, the strategy was not to get on a ride early. So you'd get into the parks and it was just planning out your day through all these fast passes if you were a rope drop person. So basically, if you were to get on a ride when the park first opened, you'd probably blow your chance at most of the fast passes you'd want to get. So that would be like the opposite of what you would want to do. The rides probably wouldn't even get busy until the speed walkers had their chance to go everywhere they wanted to go.
And if you didn't know about the fast pass system going in at that time, you would be like so confused. Like, what are all these people running around for? Like, am I crazy for just getting in a line for a ride that I want to ride on? Like,
well, maybe, but also the percentage of people who knew about it was probably a lot lower because this was 1999. Like, YouTube, not a thing. Most of, like, you might be able to like phone a friend or talk to a cast member at your resort before to get some tips, but other than that, it wasn't like the information was as readily available in the same ways to the masses. So it might have been like not as hard as we think it is, because right now we were imagining having to compete with all the other crazy Disney people, and I think that crowd probably wasn't as big back then.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Weird.
That's all conjecture. I was 2 years old when this paper fast pass thing started, so I don't really know.
No personal experience.
So we already kind of talked about how it works, but when the paper fast passes ran out in the kiosk, like when there were no more papers in the kiosk, you were done. No more opportunity for fast pass there. And that system, the paper fast pass system, was mostly replaced by fast pass Plus in 2013, which is when the My Disney Experience app, which is now I think just called like Walt Disney World, just the app, it really does just change names, but it's the same thing. When that came out and became like standard and more people had smartphones and all of that, that became the standard way to do fast passes. I say mostly replaced because I know cast members could still give out paper fast passes back then.
Oh.
They still, that's how Mom, Dad, and I got that fast pass onto Flight of Passage back in like 2018. We got a paper fast pass from a cast member.
Interesting. It's like they had it on backup and like they probably looked different because they weren't probably spit out from a kiosk, or they just like moved a couple of kiosks to the like behind the scenes part of the customer service area.
They still had kiosks. They were basically turned off, the ones that I saw, but I remember distinctly going up to one of them because I was such a noob. I knew what FastPass Plus was. I knew the idea of getting the FastPass on your phone, but also I saw the kiosks and I thought, oh, I've seen those online somewhere. And I went up to one with Mom and Dad at Animal Kingdom. I remember this distinctly. And I tried getting it to work and a cast member walked up and they're like, oh, these don't really work anymore. These are the old system. Now it's all on your phone. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. Like I knew enough to know
that was probably the case.
Something. But I was like, might as well try. I don't know. They're still here. Why would they still be here if they weren't useful? But
just
those kiosks are nowhere to be found now.
Womp womp. I'm sure they're in some like warehouse with all the rest of the relics of Disney World past, but
yeah,
very interesting.
People loved the paper fast pass system from what I could tell. People generally love things that are free that make life a little easier. So basically all the people that are online talking about the old fast pass systems were the ones who knew how to like use the system well, and it was completely free, so it was only upside for them. People who didn't like it were probably your casual Disney goers who were confused and didn't know what was going on, and then all of a sudden throughout the day people are just cutting them in line and they don't know why or how.
Yeah.
But the app made it a lot easier for the masses to kind of understand the fast pass system. It was all on your phone. When you were planning your trip in advance, you could like see it as an option. It was advertised as an option. And it was still free. So everyone was on board and it was more ready for the masses. So most people liked it.
Nice. Makes sense.
Okay.
We love a free option.
When the options went onto the app for the FastPass Plus system, it changed a little bit. You could pick up to 3 selections before even going to Orlando. If you were staying on property, you could pick your 3 selections 90 days in advance. And if you were staying at someplace off property, you could pick your 3 selections like 30 days in advance. The same thing applied where there's only a certain number of fast passes per attraction. So if you weren't staying on property, there's a good chance that all of the popular attractions would be sold out by the time you even had your 30-day window. Like you weren't going to be able to get a fast pass for Flight of Passage or like Navi River Journey, or I'm trying to think what the popular ones that were at the time, but basically all those big attractions were bye-bye by 30 days.
Space Mountain. I don't know if that was, maybe that was too long ago that would, I don't know. I feel like that ride's always popular.
I think it is.
But this is the first one of like the ways of doing this that you've mentioned that we actually did. And I don't think we did it, like we used it when we were there, but we didn't go enough before they switched to Genie Plus that we never really got like super good at it necessarily. Like we kind of knew how to use it and we're like tech savvy enough and like, you know, persistent enough to like keep refreshing it. But I vaguely remember using this one and the whole concept of like you can get your lightning lanes like that many days in advance. That it's crazy to think about now because right now it's like, well, I don't know, you'll have to tell me about what the new system is, but Genie Plus has been, you just get it that day, which is kind of nice because you don't have to deal with thinking about it and all that stuff in advance. But
there are pros and cons for sure, but we'll get into that because we are really close in the timeline to hitting Genie Plus, which is Genie Plus is kind of the current state, and at the same time it's also kind of the past state because for like you and I, we're not going to go back to Disney before they switch to the new system. It's kind of interesting because it's still what they're using right now, though. Okay. So during COVID, March 2020, parks closed down. There was no fast pass system. There was no one in the parks. There was nothing to be used. But when they reopened later in 2020, the fast passes were gone. They said, for now, Disney just said, for now, we're only doing standby. That we're at such limited occupancy, there's no reason to even deal with the fast pass system. And people wondered if that was due to, okay, is it really just because the occupancy is down low? Because, yeah, the lines are really short and we're not concerned about that. But it's weird that they would just not, I don't know. There was, the scuttlebutt was maybe it's not coming back. And that rumor turned out to be true because it was 2021. Disney still hadn't put FastPass back into effect, FastPass Plus, and they announced that it was gone forever, not coming back, and it was going to be replaced with Disney Genie Plus on the same app.
And the crowd booed. People were upset. People were really upset.
They said, guys, FastPass Plus isn't coming back, but don't worry, Disney Genie Plus is here. It's going to be so awesome. It's like FastPass Plus, but you have to pay for it, and it's worse.
And the names of it were so weird. Like Genie Plus, and then Lightning Lane, and then individual attraction selection. Like it is easy now because we've had it long enough that it makes sense, but the also, terms were just, it was confusing.
And the regular app itself, which like would kind of recommend things for you based on like a quiz you filled out, was just called Disney Genie. And they were like, don't worry, guys, there's still an option that's free. And it was just like a really bad trip planner that would tell you, hey, do you want to go on Space Mountain now? It's at a 2-hour wait and you mentioned you might want to go, even though you already went on it. It just didn't really work.
No.
So there was Disney Genie, which was the free option that no one really used or liked. I think it's still in effect, and I think still no one really uses it or likes it. Then there's Disney Genie Plus, which was the thing you had to pay for, and it let you get on the not great rides. I mean, there's still some great rides in it, but not like the heavy hitting attractions. And like Sarah said before, you couldn't book them in advance. You could only start booking them once you got to the park. There were quite a few things people didn't and don't like about it. It's also more confusing to use because instead of just being able to book a new Fast Pass or Genie Plus, Lightning Lane, whatever it's called, there's like 12 terms that are used somewhat interchangeably and confusingly. But in the old system, in the Fast Pass system, once you used one of your Fast Passes, you could get a new one. And that was very simple. Like it's a revolving door. Use one, get one. Use one, get one. And then Genie Plus, it was, yeah, you can use one, get one. And there's also this like, sorry. And there's also this like 2-hour cool down period, or 2 hours after you book a Fast Pass. If you don't use one, you could get another one. It was just a lot. And it is a lot to manage in your head and on your phone all on the day that you're in the park. Like there's no way to just purely enjoy the moment at the park and also use this extra feature that's supposed to be helpful, and it helps you skip the line, but at what cost? Like someone in your group is going to be so detached from what's going on around them because as soon as you scan into one ride, you have to be looking at your phone for I don't know.
Or you have like, it's literally what you said, but like it could be the scan in and now, oh, you're in the queue and you're so excited, but you're like, oh shoot, I need to book something. Or you did the whole 2-hour wait period thing and you set an alarm. So now it's, you guys are like actively eating lunch or you're having like a great moment. And then the alarm goes off and suddenly like you're stressed because you're like, oh shoot, I need to log into the app. Oh no, the app's not letting me log in. It logged me out. Like, it's just like, it's a disruptor of your day. I know there's Standby Skipper, which I'm sure they're actively trying to pivot, but that's like a non-Disney app, like a third party, whatever. And they like basically you kind of set it up so that it automatically books for you. That has been, a lot of people have really liked that because it really just takes that day of stress out of it a little bit. But yeah, it's not a good system. It's a good system if you're really good at it to get a lot of rides done in a day, if you're willing to pay, but it definitely doesn't let you just
Enjoy
relax
the moment.
and enjoy the park. Yeah.
Honestly, the easiest way to do it is after you scan in to book another thing, because you're not stressed anymore. You're in the line. You have a few minutes. Even when you're skipping the line, there's going to be like a 5-minute wait, and that's a pretty calm time to pick your next ride. But the worst is when you're like in the middle of a show and 2 hours passes, or the waiter just came with your food and you set an alarm for 2 hours. It's just, there's so many factors. I don't like it.
I just thought of a new scenario that has happened to me a couple of times. Or the queue is like underground, or like in a big building where you don't have service anymore. So you cannot book your next lightning lane. Like you either have to stay where you scan in and let people pass you so you can book your next one, or you go into the queue. But by the time you're in the queue, it's like too late. You're like, oh, oops.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Anyway.
It's not ideal. But anyway, where are we? Yeah, the reviews in general were mixed and leaned negative. People liked that there was a system coming back because its park occupancy went back up after COVID, and they were allowed to get closer to like full-fledged Disney World chaos. People wanted a way to skip the line, so they were happy that something was coming back, but people did not like it compared to the Fast Pass Plus system at all. But that brings us to today. We've had this Disney Genie Plus chaos system for since 2021. It is now mid 2024, so about 3 years. I truly think that they realized their mistake early on, and they by taking away the features people liked. But you can't just change a system from one to another, have all the marketing for it, and then 2 months later go back like that. Disney's not going to admit they're wrong that quickly, but a 3-year turnaround is just about as close as they can get to admitting they were wrong.
Yeah, like I don't know that much about the new system, but what I know about it, I'm like, they heard the feedback loud and clear. And part of me also thinks like, while they put a ton of time and effort into Genie Plus from a technology perspective, it's very different from the previous system, and technology wise, they probably did a lot of changes foundationally to the way it works. And I'm guessing they just kept that up and running while in the background doing some like technology focused improvements that are more on the back end that like we don't know about, because we know the app has had issues. We know it's like sometimes unreliable. So my guess is like Genie Plus, while it had some negative feedback, they were like, one, like Molly said, we can't admit our mistake that fast. And two, it bought them time to like, let's let everyone get used to this system and keep it running while also in the background, like taking the feedback and like technologically uplifting this app to get it to a better spot.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. And I also think that Disney knew that they needed to charge for it. They were not in a great financial position going out of COVID. A lot of companies weren't. And I don't think that they could just say, hey, you know that exact same thing that was free 6 months ago, we're now charging you for it $20 a day now. So I think they probably changed some things, added some chaos to it intentionally, so that when they brought back a new system to skip the line and decided to charge people for it, there wasn't as much. They were hoping for not as much backlash because, hey, it's different, it's new, it's exciting, and you have to pay a little bit. But if they said, hey, it's exactly what you got before for free, and now we're charging you $20, people would not have been happy. Agreed. They weren't happy anyway, but I think they were trying to get away with something there.
And well, no, I 100% agree. And it was cheap. Like when it first came out, it was like, okay, I don't like that. But relatively speaking, like we got it, I want to say like $12 or $13 whenever you added it as a like part of your package when you bought in advance. When that was available, and we went to the park like 3 days or 4 days on that trip. So it was like, it felt like no big deal, like just $40 or something per person to have that for the whole trip. Like easy, yes. But now that it's like in the 20s or I don't know, 30s.
I think it's like up to like 28 or something like that.
Yeah.
They've upped it over time, and gotten a little steep, especially considering how the ticket prices have gone up significantly too in that time.
Yeah. I mean, inflation, but
one of the things whenever they started making people pay for it was that they kind of pitched, oh, not everyone's going to do it. So it's going to be like more value than the free pass that everyone did. But when it was cheap, everyone still did it. Like, it was still the default for everyone basically to try it out for $10 a day. And then over time, they've just increased it little by little by little. And so a lot of people have gotten used to it. And I don't know. I don't think it thins out the crowd that uses the system very much. Like, you're still competing with the same amount of people, I think.
Well, and it's funny because it's like, oh, we have to raise the price because the demand is still so high. So that's how we get people like away from it. But that doesn't make sense because you could also just like make it sell out. Kind of like the previous free fast pass system. Like, as soon as a ride sells out, it's gone, and like it's first come first serve. Like, unless it's literally like milliseconds that it's selling out, it does that logic to me has never really held up. Like, I get it, but to your point, they're just trying to like make that money.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's a cash grab, and I get why they're doing it, but without getting too much into like the, corporate side of Disney, there's definitely been some leadership changes over the past, and Disney always has been fairly expensive for whatever time it's in, whatever era it's in, but it's gotten pretty crazy. And that's a lot of the negative feedback they've been getting lately, where they're, just getting really expensive.
Yeah. Wildly.
Okay. So that brings us to today. Genie Plus has been announced that it is going bye-bye, I believe, on July 24th or something like that. Late July 2024. As we're recording this, it is July 4th. Happy Independence Day, America, of 2024. So we've only got a few weeks left of the Disney Genie Plus. See, I can't even keep them straight talking about them. But Disney Genie Plus is going to be around for a couple more weeks. So if you're planning a Disney trip for the next few weeks, you don't worry about it. But anytime August and onward, you're going to be in the new system, which I have to even read it out loud because I think it makes more sense. The new name makes more sense, but it's like I still have so many names floating around in my head for it. The new system is Lightning Lane Multipass, which makes sense. There's now Lightning Lane Single Pass and Lightning Lane Multipass. So the Lightning Lane Single Pass is that's your top selling ride of whatever park you're in, basically. You might pay between like $15 or like, I think it's $10 to $25 just to get on one ride. Don't get me started. I think it's ridiculous a little bit.
That's individual attraction selection in Genie Plus, basically.
Yeah, that basically hasn't changed. So it's still for the heavy hitting ride of whatever park you have to pay to get on that one, unless you want to try for a virtual queue, if there's a virtual queue for it, or just if you're willing to wait in a long line. I'm not going to get into that one too much because it hasn't changed a lot. It's pretty straightforward unless the ride is super, super, super busy and they don't even have a regular standby queue like Tron and Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. I think those are the two right now where if you want to ride on it, you have to do a little bit of research and either join you have to try for a virtual queue boarding pass at like 7 a.m. on the day that you're going to the park, which is kind of a pain, or you can just go ahead and buy a Lightning Lane individual attraction pass, whatever it's called.
Yeah. And that's almost always the system for the newest big exciting rides. And so like people are expecting, like we always expect that to go away eventually. Like that was the case for Rise of the Resistance for a while. And now there's no virtual queue for it at all. Like it's probably going to be 1 to 2 rides at any given time at Walt Disney World, depending on what's recently opened.
We expect it to go away on any ride as something else newer and shinier comes along. But like it's whatever the big thing is, we don't expect the virtual queue system to go away and the boarding pass system to go away overall. We expect it to go away
right
as a ride's no longer the newest and coolest thing.
Yeah. And those, like, this is just random tip because while we're talking about it, like these rides that are individual attraction selection, now called, what'd you say? Something,
It's
not
Lightning Lane Single Pass or Lightning
single
Lane.
pass.
Yeah.
So these now the single pass ones that aren't virtual queue, those are your like most commonly going to be sought after as your rope drop rides, because that's the only way you don't spend your whole day waiting in line for those rides if you want to pay, if you want to not have to pay for them. So I mean, some people will say, well, don't rope drop those, like don't rope drop Flight of Passage, because you can get like 4 other rides done in the time you're still waiting for that one at rope drop. So it just depends on your strategy, but if you want to not have to wait like 2 hours for some of those rides, that might be your best option, is rope drop them.
Or some of them you can wait until the very end of the day when the lines tend to thin out if you think you're going to be at the park for the long haul and do a full day. But that's also a risk, because if a ride goes down, especially like Rise of the Resistance has a tendency of going down, you might wait till the last hour of the park being open and really want to go on it and find out that, oh, it's down, it's not going to come back up today, and then you've lost.
Yep. Womp womp.
Anyway, sorry, I said we weren't going to talk about that one too much, and then we did, but that's okay.
It's okay.
Maybe we'll do like more of a Q&A later on if people are still confused on that kind of stuff, but a lot of this makes more sense when you see it on the app, and it will be more helpful that way. But the big thing that's changing, because the Lightning Lane Single Pass is very similar to the individual attraction thing that happened with Genie Plus. Not a big difference there. The big change is with the Lightning Lane Multi Pass, and that is what is now replacing Genie Plus not fancy rides, I guess. So this will be very similar to the old Fast Pass Plus system, except it's not free.
Of course
Once
not.
Disney has a way of getting your money, they're not going to just stop doing that. Honestly, I would have a crazy amount of respect for Disney if they did choose to go back to the free system, but I don't think that they will. That's not up to me to decide. But the nice thing is that we're getting a lot of the perks back that people really liked about the Fast Pass Plus system. So in this new system, you're going to be able to book up to 3 attractions before you even step foot in Orlando. So that's really nice. That is the same, almost exactly the same that it was back in the Fast Pass Plus system. They're also reintroducing the tiered attractions list. So there's a top tier, and out of that top tier, you can pick 1 attraction and 2 or 3. You could pick all 3 lower tiered attractions for your things that you book in advance. So you can get like, I think like Flight of Passage or something like that. Or I don't know. I haven't looked at the tiers yet, but you can get 1 of like their heavy hitting rides and 2 lesser crowded rides in advance. Or you can get all 3 lower tier. Knock yourself out.
Okay.
And another thing I like about this compared to even the Fast Pass Plus system is they've changed the windows. So instead of being able to book 90 days in advance if you're staying on property, you can book 7 days in advance if you're staying on property. So you don't have to be thinking 3 months away from your trip, what do you want to do on your trip? Like, that is just such an unnecessarily long timeline. And a lot of people don't even plan their trips 90 days in advance. So now it's 7 days for resort guests and 3 days for everyone else. So
okay. That makes sense to me. Yeah, I like that change. I didn't know that part, but yeah, you're right. People are still, I mean, like some people could be just booking their trip like 2 months in advance, but like for us, we've had our upcoming trip booked for a long time, but we could very easily change the day. Like we just talked about potentially changing the day we're in Magic Kingdom from Saturday to Sunday because we know Saturday's busy, blah, blah, blah. But if we had done that, and if we had already booked our like 3, pre-select rides, we would have lost them basically. So we would have just had to stick with it. There's no flexibility in it. But yeah, 7 and 3 days, that's a lot more reasonable.
The one thing I kind of do like about the 90 days and 30 days out previous timeline was that would make sure that the people who are doing this as a once in a lifetime trip can get what they want. So the people that are going like on a whim, willy-nilly, like you and I, if we were just to go pack up and go to Disney next weekend, I don't really have a problem with people who are going on their once in a lifetime trip with their family and their young kids having a selection over us. You know, the people that are planning this
Yeah.
in advance and it's like really a special trip to them, they're the ones that are going to know 90 days in advance. The people going on a whim that go regularly, not that we go that regularly, but I don't know. I think that that might be what their logic was on the long timeline. But also the people that are doing their once in a lifetime trip, they're the ones that might not know. Like, they're not well researched, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's simpler this way with the 7 days.
Yeah. I do think in general that is a bit like the people you hear talking about and like having hated on Genie Plus for so long. Like, I didn't hate it as much as the people who were local to Orlando, because the people who are local to Orlando used FastPass Plus for their pop in, pop out, like if they have, you know, an annual pass or something. So of course they're going to not like it that that's an upcharge now. But for me, I'm like, well, if it means less competition and I'm only going once or twice a year, I do like it. So it's like some of these systems, you have to consider who it's benefiting, not just your own perspective.
Yeah. And I understand if I was in their position, I would be upset with that too. But if that means that the once in a lifetime family gets a little bit less of a weight than the person that pops in and out every day, I can't hate that. I can't be against that. And logically it makes sense, but I don't think that it played out like they wanted it to, because so many people still buy it.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, this is the big bummer of it. Not for us, but I think it's a glitch with their system that they already know about. If you don't live in the United States, you cannot book in advance at all. So I think Canada might count, but you have to be on American soil or maybe Canadian soil to book in advance. So if you're coming from any other country, unless you want to come a week before your first park day, you're not going to get as much of an advanced selection opportunity.
I wonder if there is a way to like call customer service and have them do it for you. I'm guessing they've already said no to that. Or like you could give, like, if you have a friend in the US, if you're like in the UK and they can log in on your account for you on their app or something, like there might be some workarounds, but you have to have like a certain situation.
Yeah, I'm sure the giving your friend a login on your account would work, but that's a lot of trust. I'm sure they're not advertising that you should give away your login and password to your account. That's not a good security. Friend. Yeah, that's not really a good security practice. And I don't think that there's the opportunity to call, or at least they're not advertising it, because that would be, I don't think that they have enough people to answer those phones. That there's a ton of people who come internationally. Maybe you could try to do that, and you might get lucky and get someone that will help you out, but I don't know if that's the standard. Then once you get to the park, it's the revolving door of attractions, basically. Use one, get one. Use one, get one. Just like the old FastPass Plus system, which I'm excited about. I also like that you can plan in advance a little bit, and the whole thing doesn't rely on you waking up at 7 a.m., frantically clicking. It's like you can just get to the park because you've already planned in advance 7 days, which is a sane amount, 7 days or 3 days, depending on where you're staying. And then once you get there, you use one, you get one. Use one, get one. It's a lot simpler to explain to someone, and a lot simpler to use. So I'm happy about it, honestly. I think the change is good. They haven't announced prices. I'm assuming it's going to be similar to Genie Plus. You're not getting a lot more. I mean, it's the same.
Yeah,
rides.
They could argue that it's like you get to hold 3 at once, and booking in advance is like extra benefit. I am a little bit worried about that. It could be like $40 a day. They're like, new shiny thing. So we're going to call it more expensive.
New shiny thing. We're bringing back the thing from 10 years ago.
That used to be free.
That was free. So
yeah,
if they did that, people would not be happy, but it wouldn't be the first time Disney made a choice to get more money. That would not make the people happy. And then over time, people kind of forget about how upset they are, and their parks are still full. So they haven't really suffered any consequences from that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think that Oh, what was the other thing I was going to say about? Oh, the 7 days and 3 days thing. I think that with Genie Plus, there really wasn't a benefit to being on site, like staying on site, was there? I don't. I'm. I
I
feel
don't
like
think so.
post. I feel like post COVID, that was a big complaint a lot of people had, was that they're really taking away the benefits or like the special perks of staying on site, and so more and more people were like, well, maybe I'll look at these Disney Springs area hotels or the Flamingo Crossing area because that's new, and like the perks were really just like the extra magic hour stuff, which is pretty small and a lot of people don't take advantage of it anyway, or like the free transportation, and not having to like get a Uber or something. But a lot of that stuff, like, people are fine to deal with whenever the price for the hotel is way cheaper. But this is pretty huge. If for every day of your trip you're going to get a leg up on all the offsite people to book the lightning lane you want,
Yeah.
when like for your whole trip, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Be worth it.
I'm excited about the changes. I mean, the price could be a lot higher. We'll see. I think we should try it for sure. We're going to be going to Magic Kingdom in September. And Magic Kingdom historically has been one of the best parks to use whatever line skipping system they have, because there's a lot of attractions that connect to it, versus like Animal Kingdom doesn't have as many options for their fast pass systems. But for us, I'm really excited for it. And also, from what I hear, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is the newest ride and most popular, it will be part of the multi-pass.
Ooh,
because
that's good.
Yeah, it's obviously replacing Splash Mountain. And so they're doing a 1-to-1 trade. So Tiana's is just filling that slot. But it's a much more popular attraction than your typical one for the multi-pass. So 7 days in advance, assuming we do the new Lightning Lane multi-pass, which I think we will.
Mm-hmm.
Priority number 1 is Tiana's. Yep.
Agree. Yeah, and like that ride, not just because of all the new theming around it, which that is like obviously a big reason why it would be our priority, but I also think that's just such a fun ride. It'll be a hot time of year. We'll be there in September, and it's been so long since we've ridden that ride. Like it'll feel so new and like in a bunch of ways, and there's really not anything else that I would prioritize over it. Like the rest of the rides are all pretty even to me. Not all of them, but the rest of the top rides, I'm like, I could go in either way. But
the only thing I might prioritize over it would be Tron, but that's not even in the same category. The Tron
single pass or whatever.
That's a single pass, so we might consider buying that if it doesn't look like we could get a good boarding pass. But also for those boarding passes, if you don't get one at 7 a.m., you can try again at 1 p.m. So we might just risk it. I don't know. We'll play that one by ear. But Tiana's, I know, priority number 1 for the multi-pass. Very excited about that.
That is fun. It worries me a little bit. I mean, I guess it will have been there for several months by then, but I feel like whenever something is that special and important, like that new of a ride, I fear that those will get snatched up really quick. But we won't be fighting with anyone off site. We'll just be competing with other people who are getting there like the same day as us on site.
Yeah, I figure we'll have on-site. We should have on-site perks, but we are staying through Disney Vacation Club rental points. It shows up in our app, in our Disney app, as we're staying on property. I don't think we'll have a problem with it, but if we do have a problem with it, we'll let you guys know.
I think that might be worth us calling in advance. I'll put that on my to-do list just to be like, hey, we are staying on site? Because the other thing is, we added a day at the beginning of our trip to go, we'll talk about this more in detail, but to stay at one of the value resorts, just so we have more time there, and we just got antsy. We want to get there soon. But like, is that day that we get there on site that night, is that the beginning of our 7-day countdown, or is it the hotel that we're staying at for the day that we're going to Magic Kingdom? How does that work?
It's probably either 7 days before our first. No, it wouldn't be before your first hotel, because if you never went to a hotel, or I think it has to be, I think it's 7 days before your first park day. Yeah, we'll need to ask, but we should probably wait till mid-August when the cast members actually have a better idea, because right now they're not even doing it yet.
That's
I
true.
also feel bad for whoever's going to be there during the transition dates, because that's going to be crazy. You might have to get like Disney Genie Plus for the first couple days, and then it's interesting they're switching in the middle of the summer because that's like their busiest time. You would think they would want to do the transition date like at a less off time, less busy time.
Yeah, agree. Weird.
Well, that's all I have for it. I wish I had more details. We have no reviews on how it actually works because it hasn't started yet. But once it has started yet, I'm probably going to consume a lot more content on people trying it out. And then in September, we're going to try it out for ourselves. And I'm optimistic. I think it looks like a good change overall. But Disney, if you're listening, I have not lost track of the fact that we used to have this exact same thing and it was free.
We all know.
You're not getting away with it, but you're getting away with it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they'll have what you said, end of July. So they'll have like 2 months to work out the kinks before we get there. So hopefully we've learned more from people who have used it, and any glitches in the app or just the system in general will be worked out. I mean, surely it won't be that glitchy considering, like you said, it's literally the same thing as what they did before. So we'll see, but you know, technology is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I have a friend who works as a software engineer for the ESPN website, and I'm wondering if she has any information on how glitchy she thinks this may or may not be, because it is a Walt Disney company and she might work adjacent to those people. I don't know if she would know, and I don't know if she'd be allowed to tell me, especially if she thinks it's a disaster or something. I don't think she'd be able to say that, but
and that you're going to talk about it on a podcast.
Yeah. And I'm going to mention her by first and last name. Just kidding.
And her employee ID for good measure.
Oh geez.
Oh man.
No, just kidding. Not going to do that.
That was interesting. I feel like most of our podcast episodes, I would say, are geared toward more fun conversations. This one is more like we're getting down into the details of like the planning, which I love this stuff. And I think Molly does too. But I think this was one of our more serious tactical episodes. So if this is your first time and you just found us on YouTube or something, give us another chance. If you were like, I don't know, they weren't fun enough. Like, trust me, we up the fun factor with our other topics. And on the flip side, if you really like the tactical stuff and the detailed planning side, let us know. We can do more of this. I love this kind of stuff. So if this is what anyone wants to hear, we are more than happy to appease that. But I think moving forward, we'll probably have a good mixture of fun and technical. That's kind of, we like to jump back and forth between it. So unless someone tells us otherwise, we're probably going to keep doing that. Exactly. I like it. All right. I think that's it. Anything else you wanted to say, Molly, before we sign off?
T-minus 71 days until we get to Disney.
Yeah, we'll definitely be doing, we've said this before, we'll definitely do a kind of pre-trip and post-trip episode like we did on our last trip. So be on the lookout for that. We are super excited. First cruise ever, Disney cruise ever for us, and then first time staying at Wilderness Lodge, and
first time DVC rental points, first time Fast Pass or whatever this new system is that I just taught everyone about. First time our parents are staying deluxe. There's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of firsts coming on this trip, and it's gonna be fun. First time using the Brightline train. We're gonna have to talk about that too, because people might be interested in that. The train that takes you from Orlando to the Fort Lauderdale cruise port. Well, anyway, it's really far in advance. We don't really have anything to say about it because we haven't tested any of this. These are all our first. But if any of that piques your interest, it's coming in just a few short months.
Yep. All right. I think that's gonna do it. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you later, Castle Dwellers.
Bye.